The Obama administration has just done an executive order regarding overtime pay for salaried employees.
The Georgia Freeman and ASA here to discuss the Young Turks praising Obama for his executive order. Let's start with a guide to the rulemaking process by the Federal Register. So, what gives agencies the authority to issue regulations? Agencies, meaning government agencies, get their authority to issue regulations from laws enacted by Congress. In some cases, the president may delegate existing presidential authority to an agency. Typically, when Congress passes a law to create an agency, it grants that agency general authority to regulate certain activities within our society. First off, how does it grant that authority? From a gun. Congress may also pass a law that more specifically directs an agency to solve a particular problem or accomplish a certain goal. How does it begin? Let's see, what is the role of the president in developing a proposed rule? Okay, first, let's start by understanding the law of the land, the Constitution. On the section regarding power, let's go. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States, semicolon. So now we're talking about what the Congress, that means the legislative branch and the executive branch, have power over. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 square miles, as may by secession of particular states, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful things, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States, or in any department or officer thereof. So, this is what that law is based on. Now, what executive orders essentially allow them to do is make laws internally. The executive, or the CEO, or the president, so all we're talking about is the president of this business called the United States, is allowed to make orders for his workers. Executive orders. So here's a paper explaining what executive orders are. Executive orders have legal force only when they are based on the president's constitutional or statutory authority. Yet presidents take an expansive view of their own power when it suits them and use executive orders to expand the boundaries of their authority. The courts typically stay out of the president's way, upholding executive orders even when they are, at best, of dubious constitutional authority, or issued without specific statutory authority. So essentially they can make up whatever they want to, because in reality they don't apply to anything except for the property that's owned by the government. So let me show you what's owned by the government. First off, DC, the district 10 miles square. The ancient historical look of it. This is what is owned by, so right there is what we're talking about, historical look. Then this is what is owned by the government, all mostly out in the west and Alaska. All this red is what applies when an executive order is given. Other than that, it doesn't apply to you or me.
Now, as some salaried employees might know from experience, I'm not saying me or anything, but a lot of people who have salaried positions, sometimes you work way more than 8 hours a day. or 40 hours a week. And then you don't get compensated for that extra work because you are a salaried employee. You become a slave to the company. You're working constantly. You're not getting compensated for it.
Okay, I have to admit, I really despise this woman. You're not a slave to the company. If you contract and you agreed to it, you're doing work for what you said you would do. They're paying you a flat rate so that you do what you say you will. If you're getting to work in an office, then you get to work in an office. If you work outside the office, then you simply have different options in the way you work. And slavery is forced. You can say you can't leave because you don't want to sacrifice your salary, but the reality is individuals have to make their own choices and grow. No company is forcing someone to remain. You cannot force someone in the U.S. to remain at a job. The person can feel forced because they have obligations outside the company, but that has nothing to do with the company. And now let's discuss what it means to be exempt versus non-exempt. Okay, so what is exempt and non-exempt? Exempt and non-exempt just means exempt or not exempt from the Labor Standards Act, Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA. Exempt positions are excluded from minimum wage, overtime regulations, and other rights and protections afforded non-exempt workers. This is based on contract. I am an exempt employee. I signed a contract guaranteeing me a certain salary every year. Employers must pay a salary rather than hourly wage for a position to be exempt. Typically, only executive, supervisory, professional, or outside sales positions are exempt positions. So this fucking lying, ugly, surgically altered bitch and her Nimrod beta male friend are lying to you. Most people that are exempt do not make $23,000 or $46,000 a year. Most people in these positions are exempted because we work a lot of hours, but we make a lot of money. The exempt status simply means that you have control over your own time. I don't want overtime. I want to be exempt and choose what I do and how I use my time. For example, I can choose to start at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. No one tells me when my work has to be done by. I can take an hour lunch or I can take no lunch. I simply have to get the job done. This also means I have zero interest in reporting my hours. Let me give you a little more education rather than listen to these lying fucktards. Which is better? That depends on the individual. Some workers would rather be employed in non-exempt positions to ensure they're paid for every hour they work. Others prefer the latitude that comes with salary positions. For example, most non-exempt employees are going to be held to a more stringent standard regarding things like casual time. Exempt employees can ordinarily spend a reasonable amount of time around the water cooler without incurring the boss's wrath. Non-exempt employees' time tends to be more closely monitored, and designated breaks are only allowed at certain times during the workday. That's only if you work in an office. The rest of us, we work whenever we want. I don't have an office. My boss doesn't sit here looking over my shoulder. I just have to get the work done. I have projects, and I have to go figure out how to use my brain to make things happen. I can do it 1 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. No one's monitoring that, and I love that. If I had to report my hours, it could be an issue because sometimes I work a lot, sometimes I work a little. But guess what? I get to make the choice. I never want to report.
Well, the Obama administration realized that that's a big problem, and as a result, they have done something about it. So, under the new regulation to be issued by the Labor Department on Wednesday, today, most salaried workers earning up to $47,476 a year must receive time and a half overtime pay when they work more than 40 hours during a week. The previous cutoff for overtime pay, set in 2004, was $23,660. Okay. Now, once the rules go...
What do you need overtime for if you're making 23 grand?
I mean, you're fucking rolling in the dough.
Like, just diving into your gold coins.
Totally. Look at all these entitled full-time workers that are doing overtime but don't get paid for it. You're so entitled.
A golden house for $23K.
All right.
Workers, there are updates. Well, here's the breakout. That's 20% of the working force, so that's exempt salaried. So if the total working force, currently overtime exempt, is 22 million out of a workforce of 150 million, 4 million are then benefiting from this. So that's actually in the total workforce. This is affecting 150, so that's just over 2%. So they're making a ginormous deal over 2% of people. A. B. They're making fun of them by basically mocking the amount of money these people are making. I mean, it's two things. They're total fucking assholes because they're making fun of people that are at the poverty level and then mocking how much money they're making, and it's a small minority.
So once the rule goes into effect on December 1st, many workers will receive more pay when they work overtime, but others may end up working fewer hours if employers move to limit their time at work. In other cases, employers may decide to increase salaries of some workers to push them over the cutoff so that employers will not have to pay overtime or hire additional workers after limiting hours for existing employees.
Well, then they got a pay raise.
Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that because that was actually presented as a criticism of this. That's fucking awesome. Oh, are you saying that we're going to be limited to working 40 hours a week?
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying that you're going to bump up my salary so I'm not going to be protected under this?
No, don't give me that raise. Don't do it. Don't. You're a madman. Don't touch that. Don't give me that raise.
I won't take that
I don't
raise.
want it.
Okay.
It's for around 2% of the working population. You can go see the stats here. Essentially, it's for entry-level workers. And if we look at why some people choose to accept salary, even as that's less. I mean, people want salary because of things like I've said. There's certain benefits. I'm salaried also because, for example, I'm a professional band employee. I have a lot of freedom. I get a car. But here's one writer's opinions. There are a number of advantages to being salaried. Non-salaried workers, according to Man Media, for example, they have worse healthcare coverage and less vacation time. During recessions, their employers can cut the number of hours they work, reducing their pay further. Hourly workers can also get fired without cause. All these things are benefits and worth getting on board for entry-level salaried position, then working your way up. Guess how you work your way up? It's not because of the government giving you shit. It is by showing value. Showing value.
Now, keep in mind, all right, I want the cutoff to be higher. I think that I'm going to keep it real, and I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me, but I hate this system of, oh, you're a salaried employee, so as an employer, I'm going to take advantage of you and make you work nonstop and not pay you for that extra work. I think all employees should be compensated in some way, if they're working more than 40 hours a week.
Yes.
We live in this country where you're just expected to work constantly. And
it's an oddly American thing.
It is definitely an American thing, and it goes beyond the hours you put at work, right? The round-the-clock emails, the constant text messages, and then the anger when you don't respond immediately on a fucking Sunday at noon, right? Like, those kinds of things happen.
In America, we work a lot. Indeed. But guess what? This is based on contract and by choice. There is nothing special happening here. So yes, they are correct. Americans have a tendency to work a lot as salaried individuals because as salaried, we have the potential to make a lot of money, and these are motivated, hardworking people. Not because anyone is forcing us to. There is no punishment. There is no compulsion. There is no violence. No one is forcing us to do this. It is by choice, by contract. It's not for your low-end employees that are the hourly employees that are constantly at risk. These are the employees that have a lot of benefits and are employees by choice. I personally have the opportunity to make a lot of money and get things like a car and lots of vacation. And I am not like this dumb cow insinuates some kind of enslaved individual.
And people feel like they're being taken advantage of. So I love that the Obama administration is looking out for people.
Yeah.
I just wish that they increased that amount a little bit so more people would be protected.
It's at least kept parity with where it was in the 70s, which is something.
Yes.
The last time it was raised was under Ford. What was Bill doing? Come on, Bill. And he's going to be in charge of the economy again, apparently, if Hillary Clinton becomes president.
Yeah.
Although the economy did do well in the 90s.
Okay.
But the one thing that I want to say, so we talked about how they might lower people's hours so that they slip under the cap or whatever, which theoretically could happen. But we also heard that exact same thing when Obamacare was being proposed.
Yep.
And they said that they would make people all part-time so that they don't have to give them Obamacare benefits. And reports have come out in the interim years and said, no, that didn't actually materialize. It made some sense hypothetically, but they didn't actually do it. And now that same argument is being made by Republicans who are trying their damnedest to stop you from getting paid overtime.
Based on what these morons are saying, they're saying that Obamacare had no effect and that this will have no effect. But let's look at these raw numbers. Since 1981, the workforce has gone up 80 million. The number of people over 16 working has gone up 50 million. They're saying the percentage of working people have stayed essentially the same now. We can see that in the mid-90s it went up significantly and it's back down again. The overall number of civilian employed workers has gone up 40 million, 48 million, so nearly 50 million. And the unemployed, they're saying, is about the same at 9 million. So not in the labor force is the number that's gone up increasingly, also 60 to 90, over 30 million. The labor force that's unemployed is staying the same, but they don't actually account for the actual number of people that are not employed anymore or unemployable or not getting employment. So if we look at these numbers, here's one that's called shadow stats. Shadow stats goes back to the method of calculating unemployment that officially existed in 1994. That estimate is added to the BLS estimate of U6 unemployment, which includes short-term discouraged workers. This shows that since 2010, 2008, that number has increased and stayed up. If you take those 1994 numbers, this is a hellhole, and they're fucking morons and lying again.
By the way, here's another criticism that I love. Opponents argued that the measure could cost billions of dollars and would undermine the morale of salaried employees by requiring them to account for every hour of their workdays. Oh no. I'm pretty sure the majority of salaried employees in the United States would fucking love to report how many hours they actually put in during the work week. I would fucking love that, okay?
Now, I will grant that having to fill out those sheets is annoying. But if you're filling them out so that you can get paid,
all day, every day. Give me that sheet right now. I'll fill it out during my honeymoon. I don't give a fuck, right?
Take a big sheet
I would love to report how much I work, okay? That would be great.
If you're going to be paid for it, yes.
If I'm
which
going
in
to be
this
paid
case
for
they
it,
will.
exactly.
That's a nice consolation for having to do paperwork, is being paid for that paperwork.
These disingenuous morons are talking about entry-level workers. First off, this isn't about a large group of people that's struggling to be employed. This is entry-level professional workers that are trying to grow. Also, if you notice, it is mostly uneducated, less than 15% bachelor's degrees, less than 14% total degrees or high-end degrees. It's also less than 50% have a high school education. So these are your entry-level workers trying to break into high-value positions. They are not necessarily wanting to report this stuff. They do not want to have to identify every single hour. They've gotten into a professional level job for a reason. They're trying to grow and develop based on their own contract. These fucking assholes are just trying to promote this for political reasons, not for actual value to the independent person making their own decisions. How does this change people's lives for the better? How do they know what effect this will have? This is only affecting the youth and the low educated. Maybe these people have taken this job to have the opportunity to grow and develop. Maybe they're trying to work into positions where they can have the benefits of a higher salary, of a car, of a lot of vacation. How do they know that it is a benefit to get overtime? That's just for hourly employees. That's not for the actual job that they're doing. And their value may not be such that they're worth that extra time and a half.
It puts the pay in paperwork.
I think that kind of transparency would be very beneficial within a company because oftentimes it's not noticed. And so maybe filling out that kind of paperwork would be a good thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is good news all around. Don't listen to the critics that are fear-mongering about how this is terrible. This is an effort to protect employees and make sure that they're not being taken advantage of. And overall, I'm happy about it.
And by the way, super fast, Obama deserves tons of of criticism for a lot of the things that he's done and not done, said and not said. But, I mean, this is a good change. A couple days ago, we had the new methane rules come out of the EPA. Like, these are the things that don't get people all fired up and they don't start viral hashtags and everything, but they change people's lives for the better.
Yes.
And so this is another one of the good things you have. Even Obama, who's a weak sauce Democrat, it turns out, good things happen.
We have no knowledge of what is happening, so they may simply be more valuable in terms of doing the job in a different way. And these morons are just making things up. They don't know what the right answer is, nor does the government. This is all pure political play, and fuck them all.